Okay, so you have this monster album, 2 Grammys, 6 million albums sold, 3 gold singles, big tour, but then the group kind of starts to break apart and it's time for you guys to do your sophomore album.
Yeah.
And I can never pronounce the name. What was the name of the album?
Zingalamaduni. Right before Zingalamaduni, we did an Unplugged joint, and that went gold too. So we did an Unplugged album, and that did really well. And then, then we did Zingalamaduni. And by that time, it was group-wise, it became a little bit more of a mixture of like pure creativity and corporate something, because we were such a big group. If you could imagine, the label wanted their hand in everything. This was a cash cow for them. It was a cash cow for so many camps. Like, by the time groups blow up the way we did, usually every member starts to get a camp and they have their own managers, and it's usually part of their family, and it starts to get real complex where it wasn't that way in the initial stages. And so there was a whole lot of, sort of corporate type of negotiations going on for that record. And it was a very interesting time. Yeah.
Well, the album comes out and it doesn't do anything near what the first album did.
No, close to 500,000, but that's it. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, these days, 500,000 is a lot.
Yeah.
But back then, coming off of a 6 times platinum album,
yeah,
because none of the singles really reacted like that, right?
Not in any huge way. I mean, we got Grammy nominations again, which was beautiful. And, but none of them reacted in that kind of way. It was definitely a hard time for me. Yeah.
How did it feel to have such massive success in your first time at bat, and then the sophomore album, and then they talk about the sophomore slump, and here you are right in the middle of a sophomore slump. How did it feel? Was there a lot of depression and everything else like that?
It would be the start of depression, not even the end of it. So I felt like I was just trying to paddle to stay afloat. And because I knew we were doing some great music, but I also realized it wasn't connecting with the culture. And I also realized that other stuff was starting to bubble up in the hip hop world, other groups and other artists. And it just was not, it's almost like the rug was pulled out from under us, as opposed to we just got whacked. To me, that's how I saw it. And so, I was just trying to stay afloat because I'm the producer of the group. I write the lyrics for the group. So for me, it's personal, and it's, when you write a song, it's like delivering a baby. It's very personal. So, there's probably 15 babies on that song. You know what I'm saying? On that album. So it was definitely a hard thing to see that this ain't connecting the same way.
Right. And then in 1996, you guys broke up.
Yeah, 95 actually. We did a tour in Japan, sold out tour, did really well. But again, the energies in the group were so off and so mechanical, and similar to what would happen in hip hop later. It became, not for me, but for a lot of the members, it became more about the money than for creativity and the message and what we're out to try to accomplish. And so to me, the heart of it had been yanked out. It was like, the very thing that I was afraid of when I didn't do the Coke deal basically happened, but within the group. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just became sort of a corporate structure type of thing. And we weren't talking to each other directly. We were talking to each other's representatives. It was everything wrong with a creative entity, to be quite honest.
Was the Coke deal part of the reason that the
breakup happened? It could have been. I mean, I don't know. That wasn't discussed a lot, but it could have been. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that as time would go on, that perspective of turning down that kind of money seemed absolutely insane. But again, everything's a matter of context. And at the context of 1991 and 2, it wasn't the right move.
Well, after that, you signed a solo deal?
Yeah.
Okay. And on the same label, on Chrysalis.
Yep.
Chrysalis, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you come out with the album, and how does it do?
It did horribly. Like, it sold 15,000 units in the States. So they come off from 500,000 with Zingalamaduni to 15,000. Now you're talking about the depression deepening, like going to a whole nother level, and thoughts of suicide, thoughts of all of that, like totally just wanting to check out. And a lot of that record was, again, my feelings at the time, a lot of escapism type songs mixed with some consciousness. And I needed that record. I needed it. There is a silver lining to that record, because when it was not doing nothing in the States, it blew the F up in Japan. And that was a saving grace for me, because that really saved my career.
Well, it's crazy that you say that you considered suicide, because from the outside looking in, people are like, yo, you got this rapper that sold 6 million albums, 6.5 million, including his second album, all these gold singles. He's touring around the world. Girls are screaming his name. He's a household face. And he's thinking about killing himself because he had an album that didn't do too well. Like, it's hard to understand that from the outside looking in. Me being in media, I could kind of get that as I go through my own set of drama and everything. Yeah. But from the outside, it's hard for people to relate to that.
It may be, but that is the truth. And I think it's the truth, not only for me, I think it was the truth for a lot of the members in the group. And I think what people in the outside would have to try to put their feet in the shoes of is being known and adored in a big way, and then having that taken from you. So whether it's in a small way for somebody, if they lose a mother or father, or if they lose, whatever, a mate, or if you lose a career in your mind or in your heart, it's the same void. What it ends up being is a vacuum, and you feel like your purpose or your intentionality in life has just totally been stolen from you. And so, yeah, it's a very real thing. I mean, it's a very real thing for a lot of artists. I think a lot of artists wouldn't dare to say it, but yeah, it's real.
Well, although the new album wasn't selling, you still had the catalog. The hits are still the hits. So you could still go out and perform Tennessee. You could still go out and perform People Every Day. And you could still do Mr. Wendell. And you could still do the Malcolm X song and so forth. But it's not like people aren't booking you. And at one point, you actually went on tour with Hootie and the Blowfish.
Actually, that was when I found out that the record was doing great in Japan. It's funny you mention that, because we're touring with Hootie and the Blowfish, who were literally like mega stars, like the Beatles. And I was, this was a solo tour. It's just by myself. I'm solo touring with them. And I got a call from my manager. Well, actually, I called my manager to tell him, yo, I'm looking at Billboard, and my record, my solo album, or one of the singles called Like Marvin Gaye Said, was the #1 song in Japan for 7 weeks at that time. And I didn't know that. And so here I am, sad about what happened in America, and over in Japan, it was a whole nother world. And that gave me a whole nother sense of purpose and value and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, when you say Hootie the Blowfish were huge, I just looked it up. Their first album, Cracked Rear View, went 21 times platinum.
There you go. Yeah.
In the US alone.
Exactly.
So you could probably tack on 30 million total on top of what I just said.
Yeah,
so.
When we were on tour with them, it was like being with the Beatles. I'm not joking, because it was the pandemonium that they were experiencing was outrageous. And we were killing the stage every night. And I say we, meaning me with my band, because it was a solo act by this time. And we were killing it. But to see them every night, just the fans, was just crazy. Yeah.
You said at one point that the labels really didn't want to listen to conscious hip hop anymore.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I feel like basically in 1996, there became this Telecommunications Act that allowed for corporations to buy up radio stations and TV stations and newspapers all in the same market. It basically took away the monopoly sort of guards. And when that started to happen, everything changed. You would have program directors in one state who was basically determining the playlist of 1/3 of the nation's radio stations. Yeah, it totally changed, because it became less about that dude in West End Atlanta who's a big fan of hip hop deciding what should be, rocking in this region. And it became more about some corporate ideas about music, and not to mention partnering with private prisons and the pipeline between the love of hip hop straight into prison became a very real thing, having to fill beds at these private prisons. And there's real, yeah, definitely lot of blood on the hands of a lot of people with that.
Well, in 1996, you actually went on tour with Vice President Al Gore and First Lady Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign?
Sort of, but what it really was for was Hillary had done a book called It Takes a Village, and I had written a song prior to her writing that book or having that book out called It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. She knew the song. And so it was so surreal to get a call from her office to my office, which I'm in right now. I'm sitting in this office. And I got a call from her office saying, would you be willing to do this song for a book tour? Because she had this book. And I was like, of course, I'd love to. And I loved Hillary Clinton and loved meeting her. She was a great person to hang around. Very cool. Her and Chelsea, Al Gore, all of them were very, very cool. We did, I don't know how many cities, probably about 4 or 5 cities. And it was a very new experience for me because doing hip hop, you're around hip hop artists and stuff, but doing that type of political tour, you're around regular America, like just regular America, not hip hop America, just regular folk. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a totally different vibe. And I learned a lot. Secret agents literally unscrewing the samplers and looking inside for bombs. And it's a totally different world and viewpoint. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was.
I mean, this is how they keep the first family safe.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.